Welcome back to the news at 10. The ongoing Globacom Recharge and Win Big promo has held its first draw for winners here in Lagos. The company's regional manager, secondary sales, Victor Carlo, explains that subscribers stand a chance of winning prizes such as tricycles, generators, grinding machines and industrial sewing machines by recharging their mobile phones with just 200 naira worth of airtime. The promo is open to all new and existing subscribers on the Glo network.
Lagos residents, particularly small-scale business owners, gather at the ever-busy computer village in Ikeja to participate in the first draw of the ongoing Globacom Recharge and Win Big promo. Supervised by the National Lottery Regulatory Commission and some brand influencers, winners are selected in a fair and transparent process.
The commission was established to ensure credibility in lottery business in Nigeria, and that is the purpose of our coming to this place today. The process has been fair. It will not end here. We will still do our own verification.
Globacom says the items to be won in the promo were carefully selected to empower Nigerians to create wealth and help them set up their own businesses.
Glo is empowering people with assets that can help them to become self-employed, to create employment, as a matter of fact. So we have items like keke marwa, industrial sewing machine, grinding machine that you can use, our subscribers can use to start their own business and start making money rather than depend on somebody else.
Glo is not just an ordinary network. Glo cares for its customers. They care about their clients. They care about every other person again that is around them. And that's what is happening here today. Giving them back, giving them happiness, giving them joy for whatever they are doing for Glo.
With a recharge of just 200 naira, lucky subscribers stand a chance to win various prizes.
If you are an existing Glo subscriber, all you need to do is recharge 200 naira and you qualify. The more you recharge, the more entries you have. So if you recharge 1,000, you have 5 entries. So it increases your chances of winning.
Through this empowerment package, the company hopes to encourage their customers to be self-employed as they continue to provide solutions to make lives better.
In keeping with its promise to build capacity for micro, small and medium enterprises, the first set of trainees of the Development Bank of Nigeria Entrepreneurship Training Program have graduated in Lagos. At the formal closing ceremony at the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University, the Chief Operating Officer of the bank, Bonaventure Ohaimo, says the capacity building program will be sustained.
With Nigeria described as one of the largest economies in sub-Saharan Africa, micro, small and medium-scale enterprises are believed to be the engine of economic growth. Strengthening the capacity of these MSMEs is what is happening here as the Development Bank of Nigeria takes the bull by the horn to train the entrepreneurs. And one after the other, graduates step out to take their certificates.
We can't quantify what they've given us. It's weeks of total mind resetting, mind change and everything. And I think they've done great to put us where we can actually be able to be confident to approach any financial institution.
One of the facilitators says money is not the only problem of MSMEs, but determining what exactly each business needs is important.
If you do not build the capacity of the entrepreneur, and more importantly now, the capacity of the business to absorb capital, they will take it and they'll filter it away.
Top officials of the Development Bank present insist that this is one of the several ways that the 2-year-old Tier 2 lender is fulfilling its mandate.
We've actually set up a partial credit guarantee company that would share in the risk that the MSMEs have, that the banks are perceiving them to have. So we're going to do up to 60% risk sharing with the bank.
We're trying to find ways to be a catalytic force to galvanize funding to ensure the MSME subsector remains active and remains vibrant.
According to the DBN, this entrepreneurship training program is designed as a sustainable capacity building program to groom MSMEs across a broad range of industries with the requisite skills needed for business success.
Let's take a look at some more business news. Here's Anne Nwaudu.
Thank you, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News tonight. 7 out of 24 commercial banks in Nigeria have failed the central bank's stress test for the year 2018. The CBN's latest financial stability report, which covers the period ended December 2018, shows that in less than 30 days, 7 banks were not adequately funded, while 9 banks had funding gaps in the 31 to 90-day period. However, that report also shows the cumulative position for the banking sector an excess of 4.8 trillion naira assets over liabilities, with a positive outlook on expected enhanced capital base from 2018 profits in the first half of this year. Meanwhile, the report also shows that banks' exposure to oil and gas sector, as well as the implementation of international financial reporting standards, remains a threat to the sector's overall profitability. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, sees great economic potential for Nigeria and other African countries, but that is if the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is implemented. Speaking at the ongoing World Bank IMF annual meetings, the Director, African Department of the Fund, Mr. Selassie Abebe, also explained that its implementation has the capacity to lift many of the nation's population out of poverty. Mr. Abebe also shares the opinion on what the IMF thinks on border closure.
One of the things about intra-Africa trade is that when our countries are trading with the rest of the world, we tend to export natural resource commodities. So Nigeria exports oil to the rest of the world. But trade between countries tends to be that of manufactured, more processed goods. Partly, of course, this is because most countries produce natural resources, so they don't trade that with each other, but they export it. So, it's a kind of trade that we want to facilitate, and the AFCFTA, I think, will do that, subject to tariffs, of course, being lowered, which is what the agreement deals with, but also other barriers to trade being opened up. So one is like non-tariff barriers. Even without tariffs, there tends to be barriers. Other things that hamper trade is infrastructure. So that also needs to be addressed.
Well, there's still no change for the bearish trend at the equities market. Friday's session ended the third trading week in October slightly lower, with a wide negative margin in price performance. Teniola Shibowale has the details for us.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. An additional 0.78% increase on the share price of MTN Nigeria was not enough to halt the negative investor sentiment on the NSE, which enters its 4th day in the week. The gain from the NSE's second most capitalized stock was no match for the further price load shed from Tier 1 lenders, GT Bank, Zenith, UBA, and 16 other losers, which led to a 0.03% and 3 billion naira drop on the main market indicators. Traders attribute the persistent downturn on the market to cautious trading by investors amid the current economic environment, as well as the need for a fresh catalyst to drive appetite for stocks. Consolidated Hallmark leads 8 other gainers, up by 10%. UAC Properties is top on the losers table, down by 9.91%, while GT Bank retains the #1 spot on the trade list as 75.21 million units of its shares were contributed to more than 300 million shares traded today. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Teniola Shibowale.
Thank you, Teniola. Well, stocks on Wall Street have closed Friday's session in the red on the back of heavy losses from U.S. aircraft maker Boeing, as well as some tech stocks in the United States. Let's see how they all ended today. And with those red numbers, we'll end business news for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwaudu. The rest of news at 10 continues now with Ijoma.
You first. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Officials say the death toll in the floods that have ravaged northeastern region of Ghana still stands at 28, with more than 1,000 houses destroyed and several people displaced. At least 90 people are said to have been hospitalized following injuries they sustained, and the country's meteorological department has predicted more rain across the country in the coming weeks. We have more on the international scene coming from our London bureau. Here's Juliana Olayinka with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. The Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has denied accusations that Turkey has violated the 5-day Syrian ceasefire, just 24 hours after it was brokered by the US Vice President Mike Pence.
Vallahi siz nereden alıyorsunuz haberi ben bilmiyorum ama ben Milli Savunma Bakanımdan aldığım haberle böyle bir çatışma söz konusu değil. Bunların hepsi spekülasyondur, dezenformasyondur. Bu süreci de ağırlıklı olarak Türkiye'nin riyasetinde ve birlikte bir dayanışma içerisinde yapma sözlerini de aldık. Ama sürekli irtibat halinde olacağız. Heyetlerimizin görüşmeleri devam edecek.
This footage was purportedly filmed earlier today from the Turkish border, showing northeast Syria's Ras Al Ain town. Shelling and gunfire ongoing.
Despite the announcement of the ceasefire, it's called different things, pauses by others. Shelling and intermittent clashes continue to be reported around Ras Al Ain as of this morning.
According to the UN Refugee Agency, the Turkish assault has created a new humanitarian crisis in Syria, which has forced 166,000 civilians to flee their homes. The agency is scaling up its response and is planning to support over 500,000 people until the rest of the month. Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump has said that he now believes Islamic State are under control in the region.
I want to thank President Erdogan of Turkey. I want to thank the Kurds and Kurd leadership. I want to thank certain other countries that behind the scenes were helping us out. And it's a tremendous thing. ISIS is totally under control, and we're continuing to capture more. We have a tremendous situation worked out in so many different ways, and it's an honor to have been involved in it.
The British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab has said that the government is confident that they can get its Brexit deal approved in Parliament. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson surprised his opponents by clinching a new withdrawal deal with the European Union.
We're focused on Saturday. That's what's in front of us. We're confident we can get this deal through.
Johnson must now ratify the deal in British Parliament, where he has no majority, and opponents are plotting a maximum political damage ahead of an imminent election.
Mr. Francois, will you be backing the deal?
I haven't decided yet.
I've had very constructive discussions. These are massive issues, and I'm very glad that we've had such constructive discussions. Nothing is concluded yet.
Pro-independence demonstrations in Spain have entered the 5th day as hundreds of thousands of people marched into the regional capital of Barcelona, protesting against the jailing of 9 separatist leaders. Major roads have been blocked off across Catalonia, and popular tourist sites were closed to the public. Tensions between Madrid and Catalonia have been rising since Monday, when Spain's Supreme Court sentenced 9 politicians and activists to up to 13 years in jail over a failed bid to break away from Spain in 2017. At least 29 people have been killed following a bomb explosion in a mosque in eastern Afghanistan during Friday prayers. No militant group has claimed responsibility so far. According to a recent UN report, more than 8,000 civilians have been killed in the country this year. Last month's presidential election has been associated with a spike in violence. Demonstrators took to the streets of Tripoli in North Lebanon, demanding the demise of a political elite. For a second day, thousands of protesters across the country blocked roads with burning tyres and marched against an economic crisis which started when the government announced plans to raise a new tax on social media voice calls. And finally, Germany's first giant panda cubs have opened their eyes for the first time. Born on August the 31st in Berlin Zoo, zookeepers said it's customary for panda cubs to open their eyes between the 40th and 60th day after birth. It's notoriously difficult to get giant pandas to mate, and with only 1,800 adults living in their natural habitat, every new cub is an important contribution to the conservation of the species. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks a lot, Juliana. So cute. It's amazing. Now, still ahead on the news at 10, 4 players dropped as Golden Eaglets coach Manu Garba unveils his final squad list ahead of the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Brazil after 2 weeks of intensive camping. That's on sports. Do join us again.